Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays. And this week, Microsoft Word, well, they've open sourced or made source available for the two people who are interested in it. And how much memory does your distro nom? We're going to find out.
Someone makes an Android notification pusher. Yes, another one. And CES is ongoing. And since we can't really attend, we snark about the announcements.
On Linux, we have dozens of monitoring tools. Let's talk about another one. And you can easily make a dedicated machine for Amiga emulation. All you need is a Raspberry Pi.
Okay, let's sit back, relax, and get right into this business. Coming from Linux. Talking about RAM, Linux distro RAM consumption comparison. 20 distros, flavors compared, and flavors spelled correctly. Good on you, sir. And, you know, they basically have the TLDR up here. Your top 5 lightweight distros, starting with number 1 at Debian with XFCE, which is the best desktop at 345 megs. Coming in second with Ubuntu, though, our old friend Solus. Number 3, then Debian 9 with KDE, which KDE and lightweight don't dwell well in the same settings. And bringing up the rear, Ubuntu. I don't see anything terribly disagreeable with that. I know here on with the box of business on Ubuntu, what am I on, 1604?
Yes.
And XFCE. I'm at like 300 megs on a cold boot.
Yeah, off of a cold boot, I usually boot into mate with 400 and something megabytes. If I start with KDE, it'll actually be a bit higher than the Debian 9 result that, what's his name? Posted. But he actually does give you the breakdown of like actual world use. After a while, running some stuff, what's the consumption like? And then he also includes the useless test results.
Number 20, coming
Unity, yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
But no, he actually gives you the useless test results, which are from a cold boot. Running just the bare bonesy stuff, how much RAM does it use? And it's great. I mean, it's 2017 already. Woo! And it seems that now even the desktop environment, except Unity, doesn't even make that much of an impact on your RAM usage anymore. So, hey, awesome.
Even Unity, I mean, 700 megs is not a lot. But if you look at the Ubuntu results, you notice that it's higher overall on all desktops, and that's because it's not the DE, it's all the other stuff, like the services that Ubuntu has and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, who cares about RAM usage anymore? I mean, either you have a crappy PC and then you run LXDE, or you could run OpenBox, which wasn't mentioned, or Fluxbox, or i3, or all this kind of stuff. Or you have a mediocre PC, and then XFCE is obviously the best choice here. Or you have a good machine with enough RAM, then you don't have to care, and you can run anything, including the one I've mentioned before, or Unity, or GNOME with Ubuntu and all that.
Again,
kind of stuff.
I may be biased, but whether you have a weak machine like an old netbook with a single core, maybe, Ubuntu mate. Just use that. It runs really, really well.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I currently have 8 gigabytes of memory in this box because, you know, not everyone bathes in DDR3 like Strider does every morning. I do have another 8 gigabyte module somewhere in this house because I bought a 16 gig kit, but I never installed it. It's in here. Man, I'm not buying another one. All right. It's principle at this point. But I hardly ever hit that unless I'm playing Deus Ex.
At this point, it's not going to make a huge difference what desktop you use. Just go find your stick of RAM and be done with it.
All right, Word. Microsoft Word for Windows version 1.1a. Why are you talking about that, Ved? Because the next sentence is source code. It is there courtesy of the Computer History Museum. You too can experience the horror and dread. From what, 1989? Was that when this word came out? Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah. So who wants to get this up and running on Linux and just just for the lulz, right? No?
Well, it's actually the only thing that's actively surprising about this story is that no one has managed to get it to work on Linux yet. How?
Yeah, I find this far less exciting than the release of the Prince of Persia source code a few years ago, which does have a Linux port with SDL. You can get it even on
But that's a game.
Yeah,
Games
it's a game,
drive
so
adoption.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Okay.
seriously, Strader, this is serious adult grown-up business stuff.
yeah, which you would want to use instead of LibreOffice or stuff like this.
I don't know, man. I
understand.
mean, come on, this is like shots fired at LibreOffice. They better watch out.
According to the computerhistory.org website, don't worry, there'll be links in the show notes. They say that the license was released according to the Microsoft Research License Agreement. So you have to agree to that, and I suggest you read it because there's the word Microsoft in the title. So you read that, and if you want to look at the sauce, then you can. Okay?
All right. That was definitely a story. Why is this in the show notes, Strider, and what is it?
Yeah, I saw that pop up in my RSS feed a few days ago, and it's nothing new. I mean, it's the tool itself is from 2009, but this is the first time I've heard about it. So what is it? It's called NMon, and it's a monitoring tool like maybe your HTOP or DStat or stuff like this. And I found this one especially neat because it gives you stuff that you
All right, I'm
usually
just going
don't
to stop
see.
you right here. I'm going to go ahead and fork this and just call it NOM, like it should be.
Nom.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, it gives you those little graphs if you want. It gives you like very detailed information. All you have to do is press some keys on what kind of info you want, and it will give you like the speed per core or per thread of your CPU, for example, or your RAM usage, or pretty much like the stuff you would see in top. But it's separated in each category, and each one of these categories is much more detailed as what you would have with a generic tool like HTOP. So yeah, I found
Yeah,
this.
I saw this show up in the notes, and I was going to write, the show notes saying, why didn't you know about NMon until just now? And then, of course, I remembered that would be a stupid question because everything always works so well for Strider that he never needed to use NMon to, say, track something that isn't working properly, like network.
Listen, man, I mean, if you can't fix it with HTOP, just put some petrol on it. Same way you kill spiders around the house. Okay.
Yeah.
And
this
Linux
is
client, tell me about it, man.
Yeah, this is AN2 Linux client. The name is sort of a portmanteau of Android to Linux, Android notifications to Linux. And it's just what that means. You can push your Android device notifications to your PC. Like you already could with, say, Pushbullet, or any of the other thousands of clones of Pushbullet that currently exist on the Play Store. But hey, according to the developer, he says that this was his first not tiny program / app that he's been working on now, because he wanted to learn how to do this, and he wanted to make something like this because he didn't want to use someone else's. Fair enough, I guess. And he says it's been a fun ride and he's learned a lot, so that's code for don't expect any updates.
I don't know. I'm kind of looking at this, man. This is like Garfield minus Garfield in the sense that it's kind of like KDE Connect minus the KDE. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there going to be like massive advantages? I know one thing with this requires you to set up a server, and you have to do a bit more on the configuration side where KDE Connect's just like YOLO, and the other one says swag, and they hook up. So
Yeah.
It doesn't use the KDE libraries, but it does use Java. So which one would you choose between the two? Java or KDE?
pull the trigger, man. Just go ahead.
I'm surprised Ven didn't just drop a yes there. Then again, maybe not. But no, this isn't like KDE Connect, and chat realm is currently going on about KDE Connect. KDE Connect is well, it's a world of its own compared to this one, because outside of, pushing the Android notifications to your desktop, you can also do it the other way around. Push your desktop notifications to your Android device. You can browse like the file system of your Android device from your PC. You can reply to texts from your PC. You can do a load of other stuff, and they're actually currently working on like pushing sound. Like, say you have something on your phone, like a phone call, say. You get a phone call, and you can basically answer the phone call on your PC, and all the sound will be routed through all of your hardware.
Because that's something you can do with Pulse Audio easily.
Yeah, easily, maybe not so much.
You need to have Pulse Audio on your phone, then.
What, you don't have Pulse Audio installed on your Android device?
Are you crazy? No, can I?
Probably.
You could probably do it. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, though.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, that's definitely a thing. I mean, this guy's not trying to, make KD connect. He's like, this is a learning experience. I just want to play around with this. And it looks like a neat project. Maybe it's something you want to go check out. So, not really Linuxy stuff, but kind of stuff nonetheless, right?
It's the Consumer Electronics show, so everything consumer electronics is probably going to be running Linux at some point, maybe. And yeah, this is the Ars Technica coverage page for everything CES 2017. They will keep updating it as new stuff comes in. All the announcements, all of the stuff. The biggest one.
I almost bought a smart fridge a few years ago, and I was just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, that technically runs Linux, right? It has a Linux kernel to run whatever botched up version of Android they're
It includes
packing.
Amazon's Alexa, so yeah, you can now have arguments with your Icebox.
And the other thing that kind of jumped out at me was that Lenovo has a VR headset coming out. And they say it will cost less than $400. And yeah, Linux support on that one, they were kind of
1440 though. Yeesh.
1440 by 1440. That's two of them, so that's reasonable, all things considered. And if they're targeting like the $400 price, that's probably a good idea. Strider, did you see anything that kind of jumped out at you?
I know that you can meet with the canonical persons in CES if you want. You can talk to them about IoT and all that kind of stuff. You can go on their website. Maybe this is too late now. I mean, it's the CES is tomorrow, so it may be too late. But you can fill in a form, and you will have a meeting with the people from Ubuntu and talk about IoT and all that kind of stuff if you want.
And I suppose this kind of neatly leads us into our next story, which is Kaby Lake, Intel's new architecture. Well, new is a bit of a stretch. It's the revision architecture from Intel. They have both Ars Technica and PC Perspective have reviews of the i7 7700K, which is basically a 6700K with a 200 to 300 megahertz increase in clock speeds. And that's really where the only performance gains are to be had in this particular generation.
When they put out, the casting call for this particular ad, didn't like the buy read just say hipster?
But yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, go watch the video version if you're listening to the podcast, and you'll get that visual. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, all right.
No, it's an unlocked part. It's that's what the K in the 7700K stands for, and the announced MSRP was actually the biggest, surprise, as it were, because the announced MSRP for the 6700K was $350 or $349. The MSRP for Kaby Lake is $340. So that's a price decrease, which you don't see Intel doing all that often at all. So really the only biggest improvement here with Kaby Lake is the energy efficiency. You also have the H.265 hardware decode on the processor now. So, well, separate from the processor, as it were. It's
I'm just
in
looking at an old Vashira 8350 from AMD. Not that much slower than an i7 7700K Kaby Lake.
And it's you have a separate dedicated hardware decoder for H.265, which if you were, say, using an NVIDIA 960 or anything released after that, you already had. But yeah, it doesn't really justify the price in for an upgrade, especially if you're running Skylake already, because you would be spending at the very least close to $500 to get a 7700K and a new motherboard, when you can get that by just overclocking. It doesn't really cost you that much, and really at this point you shouldn't be buying processors at all, because you should be waiting for Zen.
We definitely should be waiting around for Ryzen, but they say this is 14 nanometer plus, which don't do that until it makes me question your fab processes. Like plus minus what? Engineering variables. Looking at this, I kind of think this is something that was in their pipeline that they just needed to go out because they're like, AMD's processor, then if AMD's to be believed and Intel's believing that, what AMD's spitting out, and they're like, oh crap, we're not going to be able to get away with these BS incremental upgrades and push them on people. Oh crap, all right, go ahead and get this one out. And
yeah, and that's literally what they did this time. It's just, it's a clock bump that uses slightly less power, and that slightly less power, even after a whole year with the new Kaby Lake processor, it's still not going to justify, the energy savings you get from it. So, no.
Okay,
and
Strider,
wait for Ryzen.
Is it Kaby Lake or Kaby Lake?
No, it's Baby Kale.
Baby Kale, all right.
Yes.
Sure.
If I had to build a machine today, that would be the CPU I would get. I mean, it's almost like the one I have currently. It's a little bit higher on the clock speed, so I do like that. I do like higher clock speeds. Where mine goes up to 4.4 gigahertz. This one goes to 4.5, so I think it's the only CPU right now that goes, like, it's the highest clock speed that you can get without overclocking. So that's good.
No.
Okay.
The FX 9590 comes
as a consumer,
4.7 base.
CPU. As a consumer, as something you don't need to spend thousands of dollars.
All right.
Okay.
So speaking of thousands and thousands of dollars.
Singular dollars, you will. No, it's our Patreons. Yes, we took a little bit of a drop as usual.
Yep,
it's the end of the month, so everyone whose credit card expired, we are not saying for ourselves, but you should actually check your credit card because that's probably expired.
Like real bills or anything, right?
Yeah, if you have anything tied to that, you don't want to miss those payments. But yeah, it's our Patreon, patreon.com/Linux Gamecast. If you like what we're doing, if you'd like to see more of it, and hey, say you'd like to see us more regularly during the week on Mondays or Tuesdays, maybe some Fridays too.
Do you want some early access to our 9+ hours New Year's live Smashertron 9000 that we did? Or how about episode, what's this, pre-shows on Patreon? What's that?
Yes, if you've ever wondered what it is that I, Ven, and Jordan say about, while we're setting up, while we're waiting for Skype's audio to get off its tush and do its job, there's about an hour of, I can't even call that content. That's just filth, internet filth.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's just us blowing through some stuff before the show. We definitely got 50 minutes of that. If you want to throw us just one, put 4 quarters a week, 16 quarters a month, throw them at our heads, and you will get a special RSS feed for your podcatcher just for that show and our Doctor Who specials and stuff like that. But I want to thank some special people. Our good friend from billions of years ago in the future's past, Atomic, has upped his pledge along with Jeremy C. and a new member of Shot Realm. The Linux dude also kicked us a wet stinky. I want to thank everyone so much for that.
So what's this about the 5-cent thing going away?
Yeah, they're like putting the screws to us on the 5 cents. Now here's the thing. You're not going to lose access for the 5 cents because you can still kind of trick it to make it you know, 5 cents, you got to go out of your way to give us less money. Yeah. LGC cares. You'll still get your reward levels, but we have to get rid of that actual tier, or we can't update our other pledges. That was Patreon's way of going, you see, you want to do, you got to get rid of that. We're like, fine. So that's going to go away. You won't notice a thing. And also, it's very confusing when people are trying to do it. And it's like, you can't do that. And they're like, how do I do that, Vin? I'm like, well, you got to kind of hack the system. So I think that will clear things out. But let's get into a little bit of pie.
Yes, the slice of pie for this week. Strider, what's this? Speed?
I didn't understand the reasoning why this guy switched for something called Gloucester FS, and he says it's to provide easier container mobility across his Raspberry Pi Docker cluster. Okay, and then he goes on about how the speed on this Gloucester FS is horrible. I mean, it goes up to 1 megabytes per second. And it's really slow. And he has a bunch of tweaks to make it faster. But in the end, it's still very slow. I mean, it reaches 5 megabits or megabytes maybe per second. And compared to the usual one, which is 46 megabits, this is, I mean, why would you do that? If you want to have a mobility between your containers and everything, you don't need a special FS. I mean, you can do without and keep the speed of the speed of your regular machine. I mean, this is what is one of the things I don't get with the
I think this is more of a perfect example of you doing it because you can.
Yeah, he's doing it because he can.
And Gloucester FS is just one of those. Well, it's a distributed file system that it has some advantages if you're trying to run, say, a cluster of containers. Yes, it makes sense. But the performance is atrocious. And like Strider said, the improvements that he has don't really help all that much. And if you actually look at those improvements, you start to wonder, wait, that's what most distros already do out of the box to, say, hard drives in order to get that teeny tiny bit more speed out of them.
Yeah, and I mean, when somebody says, hey, what about a Beowulf cluster? No one says, Raspberry Pis. Right, that's...
No, you run Riser FS at that point.
So there is some improvement on the base file system. So it's always, you can have a look at this article and apply those tweaks, and it will give you a little extra boost on the, I don't know what it's using. Is it ext4 on the usual stuff?
Yeah.
Maybe, the root is ext4, which goes, well, it's Raspberry Pi, so you're relying on SD card write speeds. Oof. So that's 46 megabytes per second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with his improvements, he managed to go up from 1.8 megabytes per second on Gloucester FS to 5 megabytes per second.
Yeah. Okay. Well, coming screeching in from the Y department.
This is a bit more fun than the last one. And it's an image you can copy on your Raspberry Pi to turn your Pi into an Amiga. And it will, so it's nothing fancy. It's just
ambient.
UAE.
It's like probably he'll need some of that.
It's a UAE emulator, so UAE for ARM. But it comes pre-configured. You just have to copy it's called Amibian on your flash card, and then boot, and you will have your emulated Amiga. You do have a little bit of config to do, like copy the ROM files, kickstart ROM, and it does come with some tools in order to copy games and floppy images to the emulator. It's pretty neat. I will try it someday when I get the.
So is this giving you more of a? Because I saw not empty. I saw other empty in chat realm say that you can just play that through what was it? RetroPie.
A RetroPie.
This is more for like emulating just an entire Amiga system, though, isn't it?
Yeah, if you want to have a virtual Amiga hard disk with the Amiga workbench and all that kind of stuff. Because you got to buy the
ROMs for this to work, right?
Yeah. I mean, with the other stuff as well. I mean, you always need to have the ROMs to run Amiga software, except in some cases where it will use the AROS kickstart. So this is a open source reimplementation.
Well, this is pretty cool, Pedro. I'm guessing you're kind of like me and Strider. The NES never really caught on in Europe, so we had like our ZX Spectrums, Amigas, and that. More in the gaming, and I know the Amigas just went gangbusters in France, didn't they? That was like the system.
It was pretty popular with the Atari ST as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had one. I've used it until like 94 or 95, at which point I did get, and that was not really mine, but I did get a PC, but that's why I've never been a big fan of PCs.
And you never had an Amstrad?
I've never had the Amstrad, and I didn't think it was such a great machine.
No one thought it was a great machine.
Yeah, no, it was just a thing that was there, and it kind of sort of worked. Yeah, no, around here, there were no Amigas whatsoever. If they were ever for sale, I don't remember ever seeing them. I know my dad had a Commodore 64, and then I got a Master System. That was the first console I ever had in like 1990, 1991, around there. Then I skipped a generation, went to the Saturn, and then I got my own PC. Still ended up getting consoles all the way up to the PS2 and the PSP. Huh. But yeah.
Well, I mean, if people wanted to tell us about their Linux PC gaming history, if they wanted to like write us a letter, how would they do that?
Well, if they need to write us a letter, they need to get a white sheet of paper, write the letter, and maybe send it in the post. But if, say, they are not living in the 90s and they want to send us an email, say, they can do so through our contact form on linuxgamecastweekly.com. It's a pretty easy contact form to fill out. Just pick LGC Weekly if you want to send some hate mail over for our Saturday show, or some... pick LWDW for some feedback on this very show. If you want to tell us about your first Linux machine, please don't. But you can actually do it through that very same forum. Or, leave us a comment on one of the social medias.
Just to punish
Patreon.
Pedro, I want all of the stories next week. All right.
Okay, if you must, send away. This week, Bode. He has something to say regarding Strider's disregard for Chrome OS, or lack of knowledge, as it were. He says Chrome OS is very widespread in schools currently. Many have changed over from MacBooks. If you want to see people living in Chrome, simply stop around your local schools or library. Or, don't, because that gets you registered as a predator.
No, you got to wear your members only jacket, and Strider, wear your members only jacket and just grow a mustache before you go and just stand outside the school staring at work.
No, but the fact that I've never seen something does not mean it does not exist. And I'm aware
I don't know, man. Sometimes coming from you, it seems
if someone is saying, okay, the Chromebooks have been a huge success, they've oversold all the MacBooks and the Windows devices and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I do believe it, but I was just saying, I still have to see one of those devices out there in the real world. So it's not that I don't believe they do exist or they are popular. It's just that I've never come across a single one.
That's really weird, because I live in Portugal. I don't have all those many friends. I'm one of those idiots that prefers to stay home and play video games. Go figure.
An introvert running Linux? Pasha.
Yeah. And I have seen people with Chromebooks. In fact, on the snack bar, teeny tiny pastry shop type thing that we have on this very block, there was someone with a Chromebook, and I know it was a Chromebook because it had the Chrome logo on the inside of the lid.
Well, you got to think though. I mean, maybe people are like buying little Chrome logos as like an anti-theft device. So when people see it, they won't, they want to go out with their good laptop, and so they make it look like a Chromebook, so people won't steal it.
It could be, but judging by it looked like a netbook and it had the Chrome logo, I'm guessing it was one of the Acer ones. So yeah, chances are it was an actual Chromebook.
Well, why don't you like just run up to them and surprise them and be like, "Is that a Chromebook?" So they'll shoot you.
I'd rather not.
I don't know, man. Chromebooks are neat. I do think there's a lot of them. We do live in a little bit of a bubble where, we're a long way removed from school and places like that. And your average person has no idea what operating system they're running. They're like, can I get to the Facebooks? You're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, computer work good.
Can I read my emails?
Right. I mean, Facebooks.
Yeah.
I get Facebooks. Okay. I mean, that thing could be running IRIX and they wouldn't care as long as they could get to the Facebooks. And I'm only slightly over-exaggerating because you know those people too, don't you, ladies and gentlemen?
You're really not. Girls. That's the thing. You're really not.
All right, lads. I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Nice and tight. We're trying to get back to that 30-minute format because we got a little out of control. I was sitting there and we're editing, 50-minute long episodes. I'm like, come on. This is supposed to be a 30-minute show. And this one was. But if you ever want to get in touch with me, I'm at Vinstone on the Twitter nets, not the Facebooks. And if you don't like the Twitter nets, the G+ thing, it's definitely a thing. It's just plus Vinstone.
Yeah. It's Google Plus was actually kind of awesome, giving me plus Pedro Mateos if you want to find me there. On Twitter, I did get a bit late to the party, so if you want to find me there, you'll have to write down at unaccounted for. That's FOUR.
And if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Tricor or on Google Plus Mathieu Commandant. But I would suggest instead that you go on at lutris.net. Or
Lutris? What is Lutris? For I have never heard of it.
Well, you've never heard about the open source gaming platform for Linux that can run pretty much any game.
Dasura?
No, any game that was made since the late 70s to today.
Mm-hmm.
On any system.
I will say Dasura again if you really want me to, Shred.
How about we just say bye-bye?
Bye.